Courtney, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, Rich.
No, it's my honor to have you here on Rich Take on Sports. I really appreciate it. And
Thank you.
I tell you, you're a man of style, though. You've got your yellow flower there. What's the significance of the yellow flower?
You know what? It's no significance. I when I was getting dressed this morning, I said, you know what, let me add a little pop to it.
Exactly.
I know I'm
love
gonna be
it.
on camera. I've seen some of the high profile or heard some of the high profile interviews that you've done prior to me, and I just wanted to make sure I would be able to follow suit just in case I'm on camera. That's all.
You're too kind. No,
Thank
you
you.
definitely fit the bill. Again, you got some fashion about you. Has fashion been something that you I guess gravitate towards?
Yeah, yes, ironic you asked me that. So growing up, my dad was heavy into fashion, and I probably started reading GQ magazines probably 5, 6, or 7. My dad introduced me to GQ magazines very early, and he would take me to the tailor with him when he would go get his suits tailored and altered, and we would go shopping. He would show me how to buy suits, how they should fit, the shoes, the cut. He taught me everything about style and fashion, so I adopted it at a very early age.
Early age. When you say early, how early?
I was probably about five or 6 years old. So he introduced me to GQ magazines probably when I was 5 or 6 years old, and I still get a subscription to this day.
You're still loyal to GQ.
I'm still loyal, still loyal to Gentleman's Quarterly. Yes, I am.
I would tell you though, there is something to be said about having clothes tailored for you. For the longest time, I didn't believe in spending the money, to have, personalized clothes, especially suits.
Correct.
And then once I actually had a shirt and a suit tailored just to my specific body,
Right.
I was like, that's a game changer. I will never go back. I will invest that extra money to have a tailored suit and tailored clothes. I mean, it makes a big difference.
It makes a big difference because I think when people first see you, that's your business card.
Yes.
And it's sizzle. It's really not the steak. It's just sizzle. It's fluff, but people kind of judge you on your presentation. And if you can walk in the door at first glance and people say, aha, at least I know one thing. He knows how to present himself. But let me peel the layers of the onion back and see what's behind there. And if you have the steak to go along with the sizzle, I think you might be on to something.
That's right. Well, it does make a difference. I mean, I used to be the guy that was wearing extra large shirts. I'm
Okay.
like, they're not even close to fitting me. And then actually getting it personalized to my body, it made a world of difference.
It makes a huge difference. And so I get my suits and shirts and shoes made. And I like it.
Now, are you? What's your? I guess the uniqueness. I mean, are you a shoe guy or are you a suit guy, shirt guy? I mean, what's the thing that you gravitate towards?
I think when they're all working together, I think it all works. But I like all of them because I think you can't have one without the other. It's almost kind of like having beauty without the brain. So you need the shoes, you need the suit. Everything complements each other.
Yeah, it's the whole ensemble.
It's the
right?
whole. It is the whole ensemble, and everything. Your whole outfit needs to kind of shake hands and show some harmony.
So you talk about your dad and him getting you into fashion. So what was life like growing up for you?
So I tell people I probably had the best childhood. My parents, I grew up in a 2-parent household. My parents were married 45 years.
Wow.
They were college sweethearts. And my parents, I tell anybody and everybody, my parents are everything. I don't do things, for my approval. Only 2 people in the world I've ever wanted approval from was my mom and my dad. And they would often tell me, my dad died like 10 years ago, but they've always told me, son, we're extremely proud of you. So I had the best
And that
childhood.
motivated you to hear those words?
Yeah, very much so, because, some people's why is money. My why is I just want to make my parents extremely proud.
And why do you think that was such a big reasoning for you?
Well, my parents invested everything. When I say invested, not necessarily talking about money, but time, love, commitment. I'm the only child. I'm their only child. So they stopped everything to make sure that I was okay. When I told them where I wanted to go to college, they said, okay, son, we'll be able to pay for you to go. Anything that I've wanted to do or they've done for me or provided that vehicle or that vessel for me to arrive. And And the only thing they've ever asked for me was, son, just don't get in trouble. That's all they've ever asked. And
so did you live up to that?
I've never gotten in
No
trouble. I don't even watch law enforcement shows on TV or jail because it scares me. I'm just afraid what it feels like to just watching it on TV. But
because getting in trouble would not make them proud. Right?
Listen, if that was literally the only ask, and my mom asked me, she said, Courtney, I don't want you to get an earring. So those were literally the only two asks, actually three. Don't get an earring, don't get in trouble, and Mr. and Mrs., yes sir, no sir, please and thank you.
That respect factor,
That
right?
respect factor, yeah.
It's a big part of it. I'm a big believer in that as well. It's the little things like that.
Very little
things. You can say Mr. and Mrs.
Yes,
and,
sir.
Thank you, yes
please.
sir, yes ma'am. It's significant, and I try to instill that with our three kids as well, because I think it does show other people that you still value the other person.
Absolutely.
And that's important in life.
Absolutely. I think, my dad was, because my dad was, I know a lot of times in society, the dads don't get all of the credit, but I attribute.
But they're so important.
Man, I tell my mom all the time, I was like, Mom, if it weren't for Dad, we would have been stuck. And she said, Courtney, your dad was the absolute best. But my dad instilled that yes sir, no sir, and please and thank you. My mom echoed it. But that really came from.
Was your dad the disciplinarian?
Of
the two?
My dad, I think I only got a whipping like two times. I tell people all the time, I was afraid to get in trouble. Number one, I never wanted to let my mom down, and number two, I didn't want to suffer any type of repercussions from my dad. So, and that's why, honestly, I tell people that's why I never got in trouble. I never wanted to see my mom cry, and I never wanted to see what's on the other end with my dad. I think my dad probably got a spanking whooping maybe twice in my life, maybe twice, that's it. But it was just that my dad didn't have to, I knew.
Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, you definitely know.
Yeah, my dad was everything.
Did your parents, did they have a two-parent household
yes,
modeled everything that for them to be parents?
So my both of my parents grew up in two-parent household. My grandparents were married on my mom's side, were married about 50, 60 years before my grandfather died. On my mom's side, it was 50, 60 years. On my dad's side, 50, 60 years. So I think that helped out a lot. And my dad, kind of knew his role. My mom knew their, they both knew each other's role, and it worked. It worked. For me, it worked, and I guess that's probably one of the reasons why I value them so much.
For sure.
That my parents mean absolute more than anything to me.
What about sports? Was sports something that was big in your family? You know what?
Ironically, I played baseball, right, and so. I love playing baseball, but my dad was a realist. He was like, son, it's very difficult to make it to the professional ranks in baseball. So I always.
Was that a dream that you wanted to do that, or have you kind of vocalized that?
Yeah, you're not really. That wasn't high on the chart because I grew up in my neighborhood. I grew up around successful African people or black people that didn't play sports. So we had Maynard Jackson, Andrew Young, Shirley Franklin, Marvin Arrington, Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays. Hank Aaron's first house was right down the street. He probably lives for like 5 minutes from my parents' house now. So I was able to see people do things other than play sports.
Sports wasn't the only way out, right?
Yeah. It wasn't the, I was brought up around a lot of people who were academics, who wouldn't work in the academia field, where they, teachers, professors, a lot of people had my mom has an advanced degree. So I grew up around that. Entrepreneur, even though my parents, I grew up in a traditional household, mom's a retired teacher, dad retired from the post office. I got to see an amalgam of different things, educators, doctors, lawyers, ball players, everything, entrepreneurs. So
very diverse.
Extremely diverse. So when my dad told me that, I was like, okay, because I'm seeing all the different examples of, what I want to be. But sports was big, and sports was big.
Now, were you a big Hank Aaron fan?
You know what? I really like baseball. baseball was my thing. I think baseball is probably one of the sports, maybe baseball, tennis, and golf are probably the three sports that don't discriminate based on size. Because if you can,
oh, that's right.
if you can hit that ball, the golf ball, 400 yards straight,
exactly.
you just got to lift some weights.
Oh, you don't know how many times I've been out on the golf course and I've had a 17-year-old out bombing me.
Yeah. Same thing with tennis. You don't have to be 6 feet to play tennis. You don't have to be, same golf, tennis, or baseball. You don't have to be. If you just got to be extremely skilled and well versed in the sports and have a high IQ.
What position did you play?
I played a couple of positions. I played catcher.
Catcher?
Yeah, I surely did. That was my favorite.
Now you talk about size. You don't seem like you could play catcher.
Yeah, I played catcher and I played like shortstop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, saying you look like the prototypical shortstop type of guy, not catcher.
Yeah.
Which position did you like the most?
Initially, I liked catcher, but toward the end of my career, I liked this shortstop because I was able to move and I like that. I like shortstop. Yeah.
Then from there, just for perspective,
yes, sir.
The goals that you started setting for yourselves, like going to college or owning your own business, what were some of the goals that you started, calculating in your head?
Yeah, so my parents never forced me. Their thing was, just do the right thing and be respectful. So they never forced me to go to college. But, sometimes we are what we eat. And so I knew my parents went to college. And I've always, from that, having that HBCU experience, I graduated from Florida A&M. So I knew I wanted to work in sports at a very young age because there was somebody in the neighborhood, somebody lived right next door to my parents who played professional basketball, right? And this was before I was born, and I was kind of introduced.
And do you remember who that was?
Yes, it was Paul Silas.
Okay. Oh yeah.
It was, and so, and I used to go to the games when he was a coach. I used to go to those, those games when I was a little kid. And I said, I can't play. I probably won't be able to play in the NBA, but I want this experience. And that's what kind of drove me. So I knew a couple of things. Some people say you don't need to go to college or whatever, and that's fine. But for me, I studied how things work, and I knew people meet their business partners in college.
Oh, the connections you make in college can last a lifetime. I've got some of my best friends from college, and that we've actually started businesses together.
Right.
Well.
And so, when you hear people talk about the different schools, hey, this school has a very good medical program, or the school turns out a lot of strong business. What it is those people reach back and help one another. And so I said, you know what? I'm number one. I knew I wanted to go to college, but I'm going to graduate as well. But I knew the most important thing to me that was paramount was meeting my business partners and forging those lifetime relationships. Because I figured we're going to be in class 4 years together. We're going to be in school 4.5, 5 years. Okay, this is going to be my interview. Like if we want to do a deal, us going to class, hanging out, studying, riding back wherever we're going on our vacations, whatever. This is my interview. So if you ever become the CEO of a Fortune 5 or a Fortune 100 company and I need something, we've already done the interview while we're in college. And that's how...
that's right.
If you think about how... So obviously Adam Silver is the commissioner of the NBA, but Lisa Borders, he went to Duke. Lisa Borders, who was the WNBA commissioner, went to Duke. And all these different things, hold hands, and I've always looked at it like that.
Yeah, it definitely is. Why Florida A&M though?
So what happened? My parents told me, they said, Courtney, we're going to your cousin's graduation. We're going to your cousin's graduation. I said, okay. So I was 13 at the time, and I didn't, you really didn't know anything about college. So we pulled up on. We got there. I said, are we almost there? The little kid story. Are we there yet? Are we almost there?
Oh, yes.
And so as we pull up, I'm starting to see, because I was from the fraternities and sororities. They had the wall with the different hours, and then it was graduation week, so that everybody was a family. We have this place called the set, and on the set is where everybody, like on Friday, gathers. You have your DJ, you have your vendors. About 12 o'clock, everybody's out there. But at this time, it was graduation. So I got out the car, and I've never experienced anything like that. And I said, Mom and Dad, this is where I want to go to college. And my mom was like, okay, baby, this is where you want to go, man. Your daddy is singing. And my daddy said, okay, son, no problem. And that's how I ended up at Florida A&M. So I knew that.
That was a lasting impression, right?
Lasting impression. So
Yes.
I knew from age 13, that's where I wanted to go. And that's pretty much the only place I sent an application.
Is that right?
That's the only place.
And that was it. How was your experience there?
It was absolutely phenomenal. Because with Florida A&M, it reminded me of the neighborhood I grew up in, Southwest Atlanta. Just seeing people from diverse backgrounds. You got the best of the best here. You got the best of the best here. This person from New York, Chicago. So you learn college more than anything taught me. I learned how people are from different regions. You learn the different customs, the mannerisms. Hey, everybody didn't grow up like you. They didn't grow up with their mom and their dad. And so you learn how to understand. Some people have more economic resources than you have.
That's right.
Some people have less. And so you learn. So I learned so many things there. But Florida, that was the absolute best. One of my absolute best experiences.
It's hot down there, though.
You know what? You know what we tell people? Tallahassee.
I know it's Tallahassee, but it's still hot.
Yeah, it gets hot, but it's we tell people like it's kind of South Georgia because it's right on that borderline.
And South Georgia gets hot too.
Yeah, South Georgia does get hot. It does.
Well, I'm a little familiar with the Florida A&M.
Okay.
I was assistant basketball coach at University of Maryland Eastern Shore.
Oh, UMass.
Yes.
You guys went to MEAC.
Yes, sure
Okay,
were.
okay.
Yeah, so I've been down there several times.
Okay.
So I do know the Rattlers down there.
You know the Rattlers,
yes,
all right. Okay.
Of course. From there, what was the goal that you talked about wanting to work in sports? What did that look like, though? What were you envisioning in terms of working in sports?
So since I knew I didn't have the skill set to actually play professionally, I knew I could think my way out. I had the aptitude to climb that ladder. So what happened when I was at Florida A&M, even though my parents, the backstory, even though when I was at Florida A&M, I knew my parents had enough money to pay for me to go without taking out any loans or anything like that. But my parents were, dad was a postal worker, mom's a teacher. I said, it has to be a better way where I can have them save their money. So I actually earned a scholarship or a co-op because my degree is in agribusiness, and I had the opportunity to go to the University of Florida for 1 year. I had part of the program. I had to go to the University of Florida for 1 year. Ironically, one of my high school buddies was a star on the basketball team that year, and this is when Florida went to the Final Four, and they went under Coach Lon Kruger. They went to the Final Four in '94.
I remember that team.
And Brian, my guy Brian Thompson, was one of the stars on the team. From there, I forged all those relationships with Dan Cross, Dimitri Hill, Craig Brown, all those guys. And so going there, I said, you know what? This would be a good opportunity. I'll be able to be with Brian, meet some great guys. From there, I met Craig Brown. And Craig and I forged a good relationship. And things kind of grew from there. And so once upon I graduated, I came back to Atlanta. I just had a traditional job. Then I let that job go because I wanted to get a job that allowed me more time for sports. So I let that job go, took another job that allowed me for sports. And Craig actually so happened to call me one day. He said, Courtney, I got a job. It's an internship. I'm not going to be able to do it because Craig was coaching at University of Central Florida, assistant coaching. He said, I'm not going to do it. I got others. He said, Courtney, I think it'll be a great fit for you. I said, man, Craig, pass me the information. So he passed me information, found out Charmaine Gatlin. We talk about college. Charmaine went to the University of Florida. So again,
it's all these connections. It's network.
It's the whole college thing. I go to the University of Florida for a year, forge a good relate. Brian introduced me to all his friends. His friends become my friends. Craig tells me about the opportunity. And I said, Craig, pass me the information along. So I got the information, and I sent Charmaine my resume. And what I did every week was called her. And it was one of those things. This is when you had to actually physically send your resume.
That's right.
You had to physically send. You couldn't email it. You had to actually mail it. So I would call and ask, did she get the resume? Yes. And I would literally call her every week and ask, did I get the internship? Every week. And people's response, we'll call you and keep you. I called every week. I even went down there and went to see her and said, hey, I just want to come meet you. I flew down there for a day and came back. Every week I'm asking. And one day I could see her throwing her hands up over the phone and said, Okay, Courtney, you got the internship.
You got it, yes.
Yeah.
You hounded us enough. Where did that type of persistence come from? Where did you learn that?
That definitely came from my dad. My mom, because my mom is the easygoing, but my dad is the persistent and consistent. That is my dad. That persistence definitely came from my dad.
Well, again, it's those traits that you get from your parents, and you see them. It's what they're modeling, and you pick that up.
Absolutely.
So, Craig helps you get that introduction. You get the internship, I presume. What's the next step in this evolution, though, of Courtney getting into sports?
I was like, man, I had told myself, I said, once I get that job, I said, if I go to Miami, because working with the Orange Bowl, because I was working with the Orange Bowl committee, and at that time, the Orange Bowl was a part of the BCS, and I said, man, if I get this job, this internship, I'm going to turn it into a job. I'm not going back to it. So I was on date. I interned for 30 days, and they offered me a full-time job. Mr. Treble, Keith Treble, thank you to Keith Treble, even Stephon Benson, Eric Palms, they invited me in. So
you got the job.
Yeah.
Did you look at those type of people as one of the reasons why you want to give back and pay it forward because somebody else has given you a chance?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, when I wanted to get in sports, I would tell Corinne all the time, there was not a path. To get in sports is really not a pathway. It can consist of many roles. Like if you want to be a doctor, what people normally do, they major in biology, undergrad. You take your MCAT, you apply to medical school, you get in, you do your residency, you take your test, and voila. It's not like that. If you want to be
clear cut.
It's clear cut. If you want to be a teacher, you major in early childhood education, whatever. You take your teaching certification exam. Then most people get their master's. You got to click. With getting in sports, it's no clear path, no clear runway. I mean, it's just not a clear path. So when I was like, it has to be a better way. And so I've always said, once I get in and I have, quote unquote, a little influence, I will always reach back. And I think, especially coming from HBCU, there's a lot of talent. There are a lot of smart people, but people just don't have, a lot of times that opportunity is just, you just don't know where to get the opportunity. You're just seeking for opportunity.
I think that's a big part of it is what you talked about. I mean, you can clearly define the path for some of those careers that you talked about. But with sports, I think there's just so much gray area.
It's so much gray.
Ambiguity.
Ambiguity. Right.
But there is just so much of unknown. Where do I even begin? And that's where people get lost, from that perspective.
Absolutely.
So I think it is important that people like you and others in like the Winning Edge leadership can offer them, a better understanding of what pathways are available. Most people just don't know.
Absolutely. And when I had been researching the Winning Edge for some years, and I've always wanted to be involved. So somebody brought us together, and what I really like what the Winning Edge retreat and what Corinne and Maria are doing is just really, this is kind of like an incubator or a holding cell or grooming mechanism for guys and girls to come in, build some relationships, learn professional, what professional development is, learn how to carry yourself, how to speak. I mean, it's just absolutely fantastic.
Oh, it is. Well, and it's this whole other network of connections that it's an extension of, say, what college you went to.
Absolutely.
That's one network. I think the Winning Edge Leadership Academy is a whole nother network. So why are you continuing really to invest your time into that? Because everybody's time is very valuable.
Yeah, I think, it's just like with anything that you do, when you invest, you get back. And the get back is not always monetary, right? It can be making the ecosystem flow smoother. This could be I'm hoping that this Winning Edge sparks 20 or 30 other Winning Edges across the country. Somebody may be sparked by the idea of, let me start organization where
That's
we
right.
give back. Because, even with the advent of the internet and the internships are, kind of are now more robust, there's still not a clear-cut path. And you really have to understand people. I think the younger guys getting in sports now have to understand the dynamics and mechanics of how this works. And the earlier you can start, the better it can be. Like, I know a lot of times guys want to major and get a master's in sports management. What I found through my research, even if you just get an MBA, you may work in you may get your MBA in finance or marketing or whatever the case may be. Those skills those skills can cross the line and you can work for a sports team, but it's just still not a clear-cut way.
Agreed, 100%. How important is it also not only to, like with the winning edge,
right,
to showcase some opportunities, some pathways, but also to be that mentor, to teach that it doesn't happen overnight. It's going to be a grind, and these are the things that you're going to have to do to be successful, like being persistent, being professional, all of that. How important is that aspect of it as well?
One of the things I tell people all the time, for me to get in sports, I lived at home with my parents till I was about 30 years old. And
that's not always glamorous, right?
It's not glamorous. Now, mind you, my parents were, my mom was babyless, but my dad didn't understand what it was, but he was like, okay. And I tell people, and seeing all your friends graduate from college making 80, 90, 100,000, everybody else is not saying that, but and you're over here trying to get it. It doesn't happen overnight. You may hit the sport. I tell people, some people do hit the.
They do. That's
some
right.
people do hit the sports jobs lottery, but again, it's called the lottery because nobody ever wins it. Some people do win the sports jobs lottery, but that is one in a million. They can come out, get the job they want at IMG, ESPN, get the being but it is rare. It is
very hard.
It's almost like going to the Atlantic Ocean, just sticking your finger in the water and pulling out a needle. It rarely ever happens. It takes a lot of persistence. You're gonna get told no way more than you get told yes. People are not gonna call you back. They're not gonna look at your resume because it's so many people. That want to be in sports, but they're just not. The opportunities are not there. And I tell people, you really have to want this to be. And you're not going to make a lot of money when you first start. Now, if you got an MBA in finance, okay, and you work for, we'll just say Arthur Blank, the A and B Arthur and Blank family of businesses, and you're running the finance department or the accounting department, okay, you possibly going to be paid the same thing that you may make at KPMG. But if you just come off the street and want a job, man, you may come in making 30,000, 35, maybe you're probably going to have to do a couple of internships for free just to show people you're trustworthy because it's so many people that want to do what you want to do, and people can be extremely picky. And nobody leaves these jobs.
They don't. I know.
Mr. Swafford, I've been knowing Mr. Swafford, or Commissioner Swafford, for probably about 20 years, and I think he had just came from, I think he was the AD of Virginia or North Carolina, one of those two.
Yeah, North Carolina.
He was because then after him, I think Dick Baddour was the AD at Carolina. So Mr. Swafford's been the commissioner of the ACC for 20 years now.
I know. Yeah, it's something about sports. Why do you think people have this such strong desire to be in sports? I mean, why are so many people in society gravitating towards sports?
I think it's a couple of things. Number one, I think people like the quote unquote cool factor, and the other thing, even though you may not be playing in the game or participating in the sport, it still allows you a way to be connected to the sport and earning a living. If you think about college coaches, how much money they make, very rarely will you see a coach making $2 or $3 million a year saying, hey, I'm going to stop coaching. I'm going to go do something else. I think the coach at, I can't think of his name, he was at Colorado a long, long time ago when Cordell Stewart was there. I think he started Promise Keepers. I can't think of his name. I think he may have walked away. So you get maybe one or two. But once people are in, they don't, because it fuels two passions. You get to do what you like, and you're able to earn a living.
Yeah, I think that it's all about, can you marry your passion and a career, where you can be financially
Absolutely
secure as well. So, Kontent Incubator.
Kontent Incubator.
What is that?
So Kontent Incubator. So what I did was I noticed that in sports, everybody focused on the athletes, and our firm, we specifically focus on lottery picks. So NBA lottery pick is someone who's going to get drafted 1 through 14. But I noticed there was nobody really teaching the parents about the business of sports. So I said, I'm gonna start Kontent Incubator. And once I started, I probably worked on it about 3-4 years before I even started, and we'll teaching parents about the business of sports, everything. And the name Kontent Incubator, how I came up with that name is because the content is the information. Incubator is somewhere that stores, and that's how I came up with the name Kontent Incubator. And so what we do is we teach the parents about the business of sports, how everything works, from agents to agencies, what a wheelhouse advisor firms, your Merrill Lynch's, your Morgan Stanley. We teach them any and everything they'll want to know about when it came shoe deals, CBA, all of those things. And from that point, what happens is the families want us to, they'll retain us to help them, to walk them through that whole process.
Yeah, because you talk about, a lot of people don't know certain pathways to get into sports. Something that's even more confusing is the business side of sports, and especially for somebody that's a lottery pick, that they might be coming from an economic situation where all of a sudden now they're potentially their son is going to be a millionaire.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a life-changing event, and you can get swallowed up pretty quickly. I know you've probably heard all of these stories.
Yeah. And so it's really about educating the families, just basically giving them a rudimentary education so they won't get water hose. And one of the things what I tell parents is, like, listen, when you turn that, the kids don't do it anymore now because they go drink bottled water. But when you were a little kid and it was hot outside, you say, turn on the water. And somebody say, turn the water on a little bit more. And it comes, hit you right in the face.
That's right.
And I tell parents, it's like this right now. It's really slow right now. But as you speed up, as this process speeds up, more people are going to be reaching out to you, and you don't want to start in a negative, meaning trying to figure this out once it comes at you. So what we do is we take an approach, and we just start teaching the little bit of the small things, what the current athletes are doing in NBA outside of basketball. What's the difference between a big agency and a boutique agency? Kind of like basketball, there's a difference between playing at a blue blood program and a program, you're still playing basketball, but it's a big difference in the two. So we explain everything and teach them, hold their hand along the way, just kind of teach them and then walk them through their process so they understand.
What's the biggest struggle that you see with parents in terms of kind of understanding everything?
Very good question. And we'll go back to the doctor and to be a teacher. So to be a doctor, there's certain steps you got to go through. To be a teacher, you got to go through certain steps. Parents, not all of them, but just some, think they can walk up off the street and do this. It's not that. Just because you don't have to have a license to do it. I mean, from the standpoint, you don't have to go to school. You don't have to it's still a process. And some of the parents are very smart, but this business is totally different. And sometimes they think they can do it. And sometimes you have to watch and cringe and let them make that mistake. And then they'll come back and say, okay, we messed this up. And then they'll let you show them. That's probably the biggest.
So they think that they don't need help.
They think they don't need help. And that's probably, sometimes that can be an impediment. Sometimes it will be an impediment because you don't have the aptitude or skill set. You don't know, when it comes to the financial advice, where to go to find the reports. You don't know the difference between one of the big firms or the small firms. You may not know, okay, you can go check in with the NBPA to find so many things. You don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
And so it just looks easy. My son's going to the NBA. We're going to hire an agent. It's way more.
You can get swallowed up.
You will get swallowed up. And you got to know. You really don't know. Sometimes to speak to that point, sometimes the parents don't know the pluses and the deltas, or what certain firms are good at and what certain firms are not. It just looks good and shiny without digging. I don't know what. So that's probably the biggest, thing that I dislike. Sometimes the parents think they know, and I sit back and I'm like, this is all I do every day. Before I came here to, for this interview, I was, reading on some of the, trends. So this is what all I do every day. But sometimes you got to let people make their mistakes and come back and hug them.
That's right. Unfortunately, I tell my kids too that when I'm talking to you, it's not from a perspective that I'm talking down to you. It's just that I've lived life longer than you. So Absolutely. I'm trying to talk to you in terms of, I can tell you that's a hot stove. You don't want to touch it.
You don't want to touch it.
But they'll still go touch it.
They'll still go touch it. Yeah.
What continues to motivate you?
I think what continues definitely to motivate me, you just know it's always something behind that door, meaning educating a parent or their parent or parents about their son, being able to impart wisdom with them and teach them about certain things. That's always, it's kind of like, I'm a runner. So, just because I ran yesterday doesn't mean I don't have to run today. Just keep me, the thing is, I know I'm going to stay in shape. And with the parents, when they know, I see them learning and they're able to share with different parents, I really get a kick out of that.
Yeah. So then just, again, being persistent with
being
that,
persistent,
right?
Yes, sir.
Love that. What about some words of wisdom? Do you have any phrases, mottos, quotes, or just life advice?
You know what? One of the things that I always tell parents when they think it's overwhelming, a phrase that I always hear and I've heard and I'll use it is, inch by inch is a cinch, and mile by mile is going to take a while. So if we're trying to cut this whole table up in 100 different pieces, let's not look at how big it is. Let's just start on that end, just do a little bit. A little bit today, and next thing you know, you'll have it under control. What I also tell people is, it's ironic you asked that, I use the example of BlackBerry and iPhone. At one point in time, the BlackBerry was leaps and bounds ahead of the iPhone. But due to BlackBerry's stubbornness, just want to create a unilateral device and make it only business, Apple listened to the consumer. They had the iPod. They basically put a phone on an iPod, and they made it where you can do business and pleasure. And slowly but surely, iPhone consumed the marketplace. And BlackBerry pretty much became obsolete because you didn't change with the time. So I always say, hey, we may think we want to do something one way, but let's always stay ahead of the curves and trends. So those are two examples I always give people, inch by inch is a cinch. And I talk to them about, when we don't change and innovate, sometimes you'll get left behind and it will become virtually impossible to make up for that ground.
That's right. You have to be able to evolve.
You got to be able to evolve. There, you're absolutely correct.
Courtney, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to Rich Take on Sports. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.